And we are live in his house. It is Friday. You know what time it is. Ask Christian Anarchist number 40. Yeah. Did I do good? No, I did not. For
It
those who
was
say I did
awful.
sound good, y'all are liars. Don't lie to yourself. That's a sin. Anyways, but yes, so Ask Christian Anarchist number 40. In a way, if you want to consider this the after debate show after the debate I just had on my channel, then feel free to call it that. But uh, you know, you still got tomorrow to look forward to, and that is the tomorrow that is known as the debate between me and Mac Thomas on whether or not if Christians are under the law. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on tonight. What is tonight? Tonight is Asking Christian Anarchist questions with Ask Christian Anarchist. And that means you get to ask me any kinds of questions you want regarding theology, most likely. But if you have any casual questions, that will do fine. Now, introduction to all you noobs out there. If you would like to ask a question, if you see the live chat, feel free to submit a question via the live chat. If you would like to ask me a question here, well, simply click on the Google Hangouts thing and join the link there on Google Hangouts. And you can ask me for the link, or you can communicate with me and message me on there. But I'll give you the link if I can trust you and study your whole profile thing to make sure you're not one of these trolls. Then we have other means. If you look in the description, you see we have access to the Discord group. You can ask a question there. Also ask for the link there too. Then you can ask a question on Twitter while using the hashtag AskCA and mention my little Twitter username on there, and I'll get you in. So that being said, we are going to be doing this whole thing. And as always, it's a first come, first served basis. So whoever comes in first will get to ask the first question. And in this case, it happens to be someone who's new to this series. So please welcome them. The name is Joseph. What's up, Joe?
Hi.
Oh, come on, for goodness sake. Use your real voice. We all know you don't sound like that.
All right, whatever. Anyways, what's up?
Had you convinced, didn't he?
Nice.
There you go. So, welcome to Ask Christian Anarchist. How may I help you?
Yeah, can I get like a Whopper with fries and a large Coke?
Would you like 2 number 9s with that?
Yes, please, and some Tim's.
Good thing.
All right. Yeah, there you go. This is the best stream ever.
There you go. But no, in all seriousness, do you have a question in mind?
Yeah. How did you come to drum roll Reformed theology?
Actually, a very good question. And if you actually go back and watch my old material, I didn't start off as a Calvinist. You'll easily see that, especially when one of my videos was called questioning Calvin, and it was basically like because I was I was not turned on to Calvinism, honestly, and so I decided to take a look at this. Let's examine what did Calvin believe, what is Calvinism, and all that stuff, and questioning the doctrines. In an off-air hangout, a friend of mine, we got into a conversation and an argument about Calvinism. And as a result, he asked, what is your views on this? And I go about, well, Calvinism, they basically believe that, we don't have any free will, that we can't make decisions. And it's philosophically suicidal that we can't make decisions. But then he's like, we don't say that. I'm like, wait, huh? It's like, no, we do make decisions, but the issue about free will is about the will itself, not necessarily the ability of making decisions. And that free will, we agree that we make decisions. But in terms of the will itself, we believe that it is limited. So I kind of listened and I agreed with the concept that they had, but I'm like, I'm just not too sure on Calvinism. So at one point, I have a hangout, and I forget which one it is, but I can go find it. It's the one where I have a bunch of Calvinists on, and I asked them some questions because I wanted to check to see if something could be affirmed for me live. And the next day after that hangout, after my questions were asked and I agreed with what they were saying, I pretty much affirmed the doctrines of Calvinism afterwards. Because to me, at least, seems to be the only consistent position from a biblical standpoint. Now, I don't say that other people who are non-Calvinists are not, arguing good theology, or that they're arguing for a different God. Some Calvinists that are hyper-Calvinists seem to do that. But I mean, all I see is that I have a certain perspective, they have a certain perspective. It's just like, do Baptists and Methodists believe in the same God? To me, ultimately, it comes down to that kind of question, and I come from that background due to being a Baptist. And we accept our Methodist brethren. We just disagree on certain means of church. So, sometimes we aren't going to compromise to mingle our ideologies together. But if it come to it, would we preach together? Absolutely. Does my pastor, as a Baptist, quote from Wesley? He does. So, I mean, I just want to make that clear, because when I say that I joined because I thought it was the most consistent biblical position of all, that must mean I'm attacking those and saying that those who aren't doing their best to be biblically consistent. I think that they're very good Christians, and that I would worship with them, and I can safely say we worship the same God and we preach the same gospel message. So that's ultimately the story there.
Interesting. Yeah.
Sorry for the long mute there. I had to blow my nose for a second. I didn't want to give you all the nasty noises there. So yeah, there's that. All right. So thank you for your question, my homie.
Anytime.
All right. And I see we already got some questions that are coming up in the live chat. We'll get to y'all after we get to Remy. So thank you for your question. We'll come back to you later. So Enoch, is that how you pronounce it, by the way?
Irenic.
Okay. So Irenic, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, yeah. I wasn't sure of the format of this show. Like, I don't really have a question. I thought it might turn into a hangout kind of situation, back and forth kind of thing. But
it'll do it a couple times.
I mean, I'm sure some questions will come to mind if I hang out a little bit.
Sure thing. Trust you'll start developing some once something controversial gets brought up. Trust me, it always tends to go that way. That someone's like, "Ooh, now I have a question for you," and I'm like, "Oh, great. Let's be careful with this one." So yeah. All right. So we'll come back to you later. Remy, how are you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
When you gonna change that profile? Because you've been sporting and rocking the Simpsons for quite some time.
I could go on webcam if you want.
You can go on what?
I could go on webcam if you want.
Oh, whatever suits your needs, my friend. I was just talking about your profile picture in general.
I got called Ned Flanders there the other day.
Diddly.
I was like, well, who are you talking to this person? Because it was live chat and it was in public. And I'm like, who are you talking to? Oh, you. And I'm like, oh, my name's Remy, by the way. Yeah. Anyways, my question was, let's see here. Like, I recently, about 4 months ago, maybe more, left my church because I got fed up with false teaching, but I still love everybody there, especially the reverend. So it's not hard feelings or anything. But one of the many reasons why I left, and I have a question about it. It's the reverend pastor. He believes that you must tithe, and it it almost becomes, it's not salvational. He doesn't believe it's salvational or anything, but he believes that you must tithe, and it becomes almost like a work-based requirement. And to the point where he says, well, if you're suffering, it's because you're not tithing. If you're, if you're losing finances, it's because you're not tithing. And he's told us several times in the stories, he's like, well, I got this one friend, not me, him, and he was, his family left him, and he had to foreclose on his business, and blah blah blah. And apparently, he got on the phone and asked him, "Well, have you been tithing?" No. Well, here's your problem. I'm like, and so the reason why I have a problem with that is because it makes God into a wishing well. What do you think?
Yeah.
I'd just say the question again right there, because I'm hearing the tithing and such. So and I understand leaving it with one of those things in mind. But so exactly what's the question there?
What do you think about people who say that your faith and or life choices and or consequences in life are a result of not tithing?
For me, I would call it crap, because that's all what it is. The issue, for example, in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 6 to 7, we see that whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. So if you're saying, well, if I give, and it has to be for something, in other words, when you do something like, well, if you don't tithe, then this will happen and such, that makes it giving under compulsion. Yeah,
like to elaborate though, he just because like I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea about my reverend, but he would actually say that it has nothing to do with hoping to get something in return. It's not a way to get God to give you riches. He's not a prosperity gospel. He's against that kind of thing. But rather, he does, like I said earlier, he would respond to a friend of his who was losing his family, losing his job, and he would blame it on the guy not tithing. So it's not about getting riches in return, although he preaches against getting riches in return, but rather, again, it's because if you're suffering, it's because you're not tithing. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that is prosperity gospel preaching, in my honest opinion. Okay. Is that if you don't tithe or give to the church, then you're, because they're basically trying to say, if you plant a seed here, then you're going to get something back, like the whole karma situation. And to me, that's not what happens. There's nowhere in the scriptures that will support this guy's position that if you do this, then you're going to start reaping bountifully. It's mostly just motivational talk about this. Whenever you have ones that give it to the church in Acts and Corinthians and Timothy, it's a cheerful giving. And in fact, the interesting thing is too, like the word tithing, people get it with like a 10% kind of thing. Even then, there is really no difference where you can find that in the deal. And in fact, the only time we see a tithing is one instance with Abraham. That was mostly when we see it. And after that never happens again.
Well, it had to do with paying for not necessarily the construction of the temple, but it was meant to pay for those who were working in the temple who didn't have money of their own to pay for provisions and food. So it was, but in the Old Testament, it was meant to pay for the I can't remember what I don't know. I can't remember what they were called. Some sort of ites, and they worked in the temple. Levites? Right. Okay. Yeah, thank you. And so I get that. It was, pay 10% of your weekly earnings to help with them because they didn't have proper financial living, like a job outside of the temple, and just lived in the temple. I get that. And people would say, well, in the New Testament, you got Jesus praising the woman, so you get that too. But Jesus never made it a paramount, this is what you do. It's rather because she gave from her heart at what she chose, what she took from her purse, which was the last of her earnings for that month. You know, we know the story. So it came from the heart, like you just said. Exactly. But and my reverend would read that too, and then he would still turn to us saying, well, you know, if you must tithe this month, and if you're not tithing, then you can't expect the Lord to bless your finances. It's like, great.
Well, if that's the case, then why is it that it says, "Blessed are the poor"? How are the poor going to tithe and donate? I mean, it's a simple question. So God blesses those who can't even pay or afford to pay. I mean, it's right there in the famous passage of the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the rich. No. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. The poor are usually said to be blessed people. And Jesus even said that certain people that were even lame and poor, these people were blessed by the gift and grace of God, and that some of them were even healed. So the money definitely was something they could not even afford to do, and yet they're still getting blessed. So you can't really say that it's all about money and such, because then think about it consistently. For other times, we've had moments where, you know, some people are just trying to get by. They're just their means of being justified. For example, like Abraham, a grace and a blessing he was given was being justified. And it wasn't by his deeds or by paying anything. It was by his faith. So faith is the one thing that grants us the blessing. It's not paying amount of money for some of these prosperity preachers and to the church. It's your faith. That's what's going to ultimately be the deciding thing in which you seal the blessing and such.
If I might add something, it sounds like this pastor might be coming from a legalistic mindset, and he's coming to it as a matter of obedience. And, you know, pastors tend to, you know, preach on tithing once in a while. You know, it was strictly an Old Testament or, you know, an Old Covenant thing to provide for the Levites. But, you know, as far as our giving today as Christians, you know, I think the biblical teaching would be that, you know, we need to consider everything we have as the Lord's, and we're stewards of it. And so, you know, we just need to be wise in our giving, and, you know, but I think we need to be giving. There's not a 10% rule, but like you said, CA, you know, it's a matter of the heart, you know, so.
Right. So that's really all I can say on that. I mean, personally, I'm glad I think you got out of that church. I think that wouldn't have been that.
Yeah,
that church
my only problem with leaving in general is that I'm a disabled person. I can't walk very far, and I don't drive, so I don't go to church anymore because I don't know anybody around me to come and pick me up and go somewhere. So I'm kind of trapped on that point of view. But back on the tithing thing, I remember a long time ago, probably about 13 years ago, I asked my pastor, well, what if I forget to tithe? And he lashed out at me. And I'm great friends with this guy. I'm great friends with this guy. I love him. But I asked him, so what? But what if I forget? And he reacted to me as if I was saying purposely and intentionally neglecting, as if I was planning on saying, well, I don't have to this month. I didn't say that. I said, what if I forget? And he says, you don't forget. I was like, Hey, never mind.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your question, mate. Hopefully you do well, and I'll pray for you for. I don't know if you found another church yet or not, but if you haven't, I'll be praying for you in your search for a local gathering in the body of Christ. All right. So thank you, Remy. We're going to go on to the live chat. I want to get to one person's question, Mr. Tyler Durden, who says, okay, if you believe an entity like Satan exists, how did you determine that Satan was not the one who inspired the authors of the Bible? Bear in mind that an entity such as Satan would be able to make you feel as though you were being influenced by good, being such as God. So how it makes you feel is not as reliable is not a reliable method for, okay, telling what kind of entity is influencing and inspiring you. Well, at this point, you kind of brought a point where we really have no standard to tell at this point. I agree we shouldn't test things by our emotions or feelings, even if it's from God for this concerning the scriptures. But then, how then do we determine that Satan was not the one who inspired the authors of the Bible? Well, how can we determine that it's Satan to begin with, or God to begin with, if that leads us to then doubt this, the inspiration of the scriptures? So far, what we have is based on what the written word says. And what we get from the written word is that it was inspired by God, and it seems that Satan is casted into a negative light with all these negative things said. Now, if you want to say that, well, it turns out to actually be Satan, and he's just tricking you into, by making himself appear good, and he actually is good. Either that's the case, or that he's actually good and that the God is evil, or that he's actually still evil as the Bible states, but he's just tricking you, and that he's actually the one that just inspired it. For the second one, it's inconsistent because it says that basically that the devil wants to inspire people to write a book in which he is sharply criticized and putting himself in such a negative light that it makes people wonder, why follow this guy? Exactly. The first thing being, well, if that's the case, then why is it that Satan is then in the sense of being accused of being the evil one? He would surely he would want people to know and go towards his name, just like in the way that God would, based upon what we see in the scriptures. But it doesn't seem to do that. So I don't know. I find the question to be very malformed and very problematic, in my opinion, because once you actually start thinking about the question, then you come into some problems if you're going to argue it from a viewpoint in regards to theology and such. So that's just my general thoughts on that particular question. And welcome, Abdul.
Hey, how's it going? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Let's hope we just don't get any internet cutouts, because I remember that's happened a couple times with you before. Hopefully those get fixed.
I'm in a different location now, so it should be better, but just let me know if anything seems dicey.
Sure thing. And I'm going to eat a oatmeal cream pie for this next question because I have to take my medicine in a couple. So what do we have next? From Tulip, Doctrines of Grace. Who is your favorite non-Calvinist? It's actually a pretty good question. Well, out of any of the non-Calvinists that I've subscribed towards the channels of, probably have to be Dr. Michael Brown. Because he's a very good guy. Because besides the issue about him arguing Arminianism and such, he's a great apologist. Very definitely a good conservative political commentator in regards to, I mean, like especially when the whole Trump thing was starting out with the elections, he was more Cruz than Trump, and even to this day has his worries about Trump, and kind of in the same boat that I am on that. But also the fact that he is a Jew and that he argues from a Jewish perspective, showing that how the Old Testament Tanakh, and even quotes the Hebrew, how you could find the parallels to show that Jesus is the promised Messiah. And he's debated plenty of rabbis and such on the topic as well. And he can do this because not only does he just go to the Old Testament in the Hebrew scriptures, meaning just reading it in Hebrew, but he can go to the rabbis that he manages to study as well in their commentaries on these issues, and go to Old Testament commentaries that are written only from a Jewish perspective and Jewish scholarly articles, and is able to make the parallel connection from Old Testament Tanakh, that all of it prophesies and talks of Jesus coming, which he would call at times as Yeshua. So that is the one thing right there. So that's one of my favorite non-Calvinists out of all of the non-Calvinists that I listened to.
Can I add something in real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, it should be noted though that Michael Brown isn't just strictly a Jew in the conventional sense that we think of, that he believes in the Hebrew Bible, yet doesn't accept the New Testament or Christian doctrine, yet accepts Jesus as Messiah. He actually does accept the New Testament. He accepts the writings of Paul. He basically has every single belief that a Christian does. He is essentially a Christian in theological beliefs. He believes in the Trinity and, most other, orthodox beliefs of Christians. So many would consider him to be just a Christian. So you would really have to define what you mean when you say a Jew, because technically speaking, every Orthodox Christian obviously also believes
a Jewish race
in the Hebrew Bible. And so if they self-proclaim themselves to be a Jew, then they would be considered a Jew in that scenario. Every Christian would. So you would have to exactly define what you mean when you say Jew, whether it's race, like you just said, or
race.
theological beliefs.
Yeah, a person that's by race. I think
so he has Jewish parents, is what you mean?
Based on what and I think I made that clear when I was trying to make the statement, because he's talking about when I said Christianity and showing that it's to Jesus and such. Of course, there's no Old Testament only person that would ever say and go pointing out to Jesus and such. Those people would. That's an inconsistent thing to say, simply Old Testament, but without going to New Testament, then try to mention Jesus. Obviously, you'd have to be definitely a Christian by that sense too. But that's why that's why they would call them either Messianic Christians or Jewish Christians, because of the Jewish by their ethnicity and their tradition that they were originally of.
But there could most definitely still be some Messianic Jews. There are several 100,000 Messianic Jews in the world, and I wouldn't go as far to say that every single one of them categorically accepts the New Testament and the doctrine of the Trinity. I would say that there are definitely some of them who accept that Jesus does fulfill the role of being the Messiah, but in the Jewish sense, not as a divine being, as part of a Trinity. So I wouldn't go as far to say that accepting Jesus as the Messiah necessitates that you believe in the New Testament and all the other theological baggage that it carries. But nevertheless, you clarified your point. He's Michael Brown is Jewish by race. Okay.
Right. So going then to the last one for the live chat until later on, we have Blue asking, do you watch Game of Thrones, CA? I'm going to go take my medicine as I answer this one. No, I don't watch Game of Thrones, but my stepmom watches it. And I only saw like a couple bits of it, and it was okay. It was somewhat interesting. I do notice the language is a little bit too much. Because I was expecting, definitely medieval style kind of stuff. But the way they talk almost is like 21st century gangsters at times, in my opinion. So it's an interesting show from what I hear, especially with the Red Wedding and such. But it is what it is at this point. Let's see, we got 2 people that have just joined us. Add them in and put this on. Okay, there we go. Okay, so thank you for your question there, Blue. And I personally don't plan on watching it because I don't have HBO for one, and secondly, I'm currently in the middle of binge watching Rurouni Kenshin at this point. So I'm more into my anime than the HBO primetime stuff, my friend. So yeah, welcome newbies that have just joined us. Well, one's a newbie. One's been in here for quite some time on these hangouts before. So where was I on this? Okay, yes. So Remy came in, and then Abdul had joined next. So Abdul, you're next with a question.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So in a previous discussion that we had, you basically alluded to the fact that I believe, and perhaps I misheard, but basically my sort of prerequisite question, I guess, depending on what your answer is could you examine what you believe, just extend it, and why you do believe in it, if so?
You just broke up quite a lot there. Could you repeat yourself there?
Yeah. What is original sin, and do you believe in it? If so, why?
Yeah. I believe in original sin because it's in the Old Testament, and that the original sin is basically that because of the sin of Adam and Eve, that the sinful nature is thus passed on, and that because of this, the inhabitant thoughts of human beings were naturally inclined towards evil, as we see in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. And then as we see the heart, this sort of thing that's mentioned still goes on within Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9, in regards to the heart. Everything goes back to the heart. Genesis 6:5 says the heart's thoughts are evil continually. And Jeremiah 17, verse 9 says that the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Who can understand it? So.
Okay. So allow me to clarify. I understood everything you said. But does the original sin, or at least the concept of it that you believe in, basically say that because Adam and Eve were obviously in heaven in the Garden of Eden, and then, underwent the fall, that therefore us, their descendants, are prone to sinning by nature? If that's your argument, or if that's your position on original sin, I would have no problem with that. But as I understand it, many of the Christians that I speak to, many of my Christian friends, would say that original sin actually goes beyond that, and basically says that us human beings share the sin that Adam and Eve did in the Garden of Eden, disobeying God and eating from the tree, and that basically their original sin that they did in the Garden of Eden somehow transmits to us, all the descendants, and so we're all born bearing the sin of our father and mother, Adam and Eve. Is that your position?
Not necessarily. I mean, my understanding of original sin, and I actually have a section in my expository on Calvinism, an entire chapter devoted to the section of original sin, what it means, and all of that. So the whole thing about original sin, based upon my understanding and reading, is that original sin basically talks of the issue that we, due to the sin, a curse is then put upon, in which the effects of sin are cast upon, which is that of spiritual death, as we have seen in Romans 3:23 and Romans 6:23, and that this spiritual death that we hear is that which that goes towards the heart, which is what goes about bringing out the nature of things. What Jesus says, that you may do these things by your deeds and such, but however, it's your heart that shows your true intentions. You can say and claim to do all the good deeds, but what your heart says is another story. And that's what we see going on in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5, and Jeremiah 17:9, is that the heart is important, that truly it's the reason behind sin, because it desires wickedness and evil. that is what the heart does. And so that's ultimately the cause of original sin. The idea of imputation can be the imputation of the penalty. And that is simply that because we have this sinful nature, that is the result of the imputation, is that we inherit this sinful nature because of what our father Adam did.
Okay, so basically, the answer to my question very succinctly would be no. The very sin that was committed by Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden has not transmitted onto us and all of their descendants, but rather the sinful nature that was inherent during the fall has now basically been passed down to us. And so we, like our parents, Adam and Eve, are now prone to sin or have a sinful nature, but not necessarily that we are born bearing the sin that they committed. They are responsible for that sin. We are not responsible for their sin,
Right.
although we still have our own sinful nature.
Right.
Okay. Okay, because many Christians do have this notion that, in fact, the very sin that was committed in the Garden of Eden has been transmitted to us. And the Bible, I believe, speaks very heavily against that, especially in a very famous passage that I think you've heard of in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 18, where God says very, very clearly in verse 20 and onward, he says, "The one who sins is the one who will die. And the child will not bear the iniquity of the father, nor shall the father bear the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous is accredited to them, and the wickedness of the wicked is charged against them."
Right, which is why then the issue is then about those who have the sinful nature. If, for example, let's say we have an infant that dies due to an abortion, or they just have a miscarriage, if the child, which he has the sinful nature, the thing of which is the result of the thing from Adam and Eve, if it's the position of simply that, then that means that the child will die and go to hell. If it's going to say that the person has the sin at that point, the issue is about the accountability. And if it has the sinful nature, they just simply have the nature that will allow them to sin, but they haven't sinned yet. And that's where it says that the soul that sins is the one that dies. In other words, that contains a thing that separates them from God. As Paul mentions, that if you sin, you are basically committing yourself some suicide there. You are dead because you are judged by the law and its precepts. And as a result, that's why even Jesus himself mentions and makes a clarification of those who have not sinned, because there are those such as little infants that are not held accountable, who are not held to the law because if they sin, that means they violate the law. But because they cannot give an account, as what the Bible also says, not just from Paul, but from Jesus, that everyone is ultimately going to give an account when they die. How is an infant that can't even process the ability to speak or communicate or even remember things, how is he going to give an account if he is not even able to do the basic functions in which you go back and remember to give an account of such things? So
I agree 100%.
Right. So that's the one thing about it. There are some people that, especially maybe a hyper Calvinist or such, that will put it in an extreme way as what you have stated. But I mean, if you just go back and look at some of the great systematic theology books about this, which these would pretty much in a sense be like a introduction to the sciences of the Quran and Hadith and such for Islam and such. Systematic theology books are very good ways to get an understanding of certain things from a collected, systematic, and organized perspective on this. So that's one thing I would recommend. And there's some free ones you can especially get online today. I forget who it was. I think his name was Charles Hodge or something like that. He's a Reformed person, and he wrote a systematic theology book in a couple of volumes. And that's one free one that's online that one is able to get. But I would recommend, for more up-to-date study, maybe something along the lines of the classic Wayne Grudem's systematic theology, and I forget what the new one is from, but but Wayne Grudem's would be a definitely good starting point for one of them.
Okay, thank you for that recommendation. Let me finish up my question, just because you did briefly bring up the basically issue of Islam. Allow me just very, quickly to close the question, to provide the Islamic conception of quote unquote original sin. So basically in Islam, very briefly, what we believe about the so-called fall is that actually God Almighty had already preordained that mankind would be put on earth. He already knew that all of humankind, not necessarily knew, of course you would agree that God had, God is omniscient and had the pre-existing knowledge that we would be on earth. But in Islam, it specifically and uniquely says that God actually decided, he already ordained, he already decreed that mankind would be put on earth. The only reason why Adam and Eve were put in heaven originally was because after their creation, God knew they were going to sin, and he wanted to teach Adam and Eve the concept of forgiveness. And then once they had learned forgiveness and how to supplicate to God and ask for repentance from that original sin that they committed, then he would put them on earth. And then basically their procreation would begin and mankind would begin to flourish. So that's the key difference between Islam and Christianity in that specific narrative. And I like the way that Shabir Ali put it. Perhaps you know him. He's a Muslim scholar and apologist. He said that basically in Islam, we don't have a conception of original sin, but more of original forgiveness.
Right.
God had already decreed that mankind would be put on earth. He knew that Adam and Eve would sin because they are, as you said, prone to sinfulness, because we are imperfect by nature of our being human beings.
Right.
So
I read about this in his book on misconceptions about Islam.
Right. So I wanted to clarify that because I think it's an important distinction that we should make between the two faiths.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right. Thank you for your answers.
No problem. I know we got like a full house now, which I didn't think we were going to get tonight, honestly, because of how crazy it was earlier. So let's see. We got before we get to any others, though, I want to try to get as much of the live chat as I can out the way. Let's see here. We have Shadowrun. Why isn't the Book of Enoch accepted as scripture? Because the church overall did not accept it as scripture. And as well as the Old Testament Jews. Now they gained some wisdom from it. But overall it wasn't part of the canon. It wasn't considered God inspired or God breathed, but instead rather it was considered a piece of Jewish literature in which one can read and understand somewhat of a history of things, such as, for example, the Apocrypha. You have 1st and 2nd Maccabees, and while these things aren't considered part of the canon or inspired, they give a historical account. For example, Josephus is a Jew who rejects clearly, based upon his layout of the canon of the Old Testament. He lays out this Protestant canon. But yet Josephus is in his Antiquities of the Jews citing Maccabees as if it's a historical account. At least he's describing the events without quoting, saying as it is written. What he's simply doing is giving an historical account. And I think ultimately that is what some of these books are, is that some of them are either giving accounts, some of them are stories to help give enlightenment about Jewish theology or ideas or what the ancient Near East was going about. And so far, Enoch is one of those things, because one of the things we notice also is that some of the New Testament goes on Enoch. In Genesis, we see the name Enoch is mentioned. In Jude, we see that Enoch is quoted. And the issue is not saying, oh, well, this is an inspired scripture, but rather that it is simply that you can gain some wisdom from it, but don't rely on it for the one thing that Paul mentions in 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17, for doctrine. You can gain some wisdom, but if you're trying to establish, okay, here's the doctrine we need to follow, you're not going to get it from Enoch. You're not going to get it from 1st Maccabees. You're not going to get it from 2nd Maccabees. You're not going to get it in these apocryphal works. Get it in the canonized scriptures that are of God inspired, and there's no consensus about it. So there you go. Next question is real quick, because I already answered it actually. So if original sin in the Old Testament, I mentioned, the sin that happens with Adam and Eve, and then you have, as the result, you have Genesis 6:5 and Jeremiah 17:9. Real quick, can we talk about anime sometimes from Master Zemnis? Sure. If you want to, hit me up either on Hangouts or the Discord chat. Either way, you can look on the in the description link, and you can get links to both of those if you want to chat more about that later on. But yeah, thank y'all for that. So far, we're going to try to get to a couple people. It's going to be difficult since some left. Let's see. Watch who I left, for example. Nate then is next in the order. Nate, how are you doing? It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been quite a while since I've tuned in. My question was your opinion of not so much cursing, but what's your opinion of just saying words without intending their meaning? Like, I say filthy a lot without really intending meaning. I basically just use it in the place of a regular curse word. Do you think that is wrong?
Okay, so saying something to replace a cuss word, asking if it's wrong or right.
Yeah.
I think, again, this is, in my opinion, I think it's kind of wrong because, as we mentioned earlier about the original sin verses, it's about the heart. What are you ultimately trying to accomplish by doing this? Just simply replacing a word that, words are meaningless unless you give them meaning. What is the meaning you're giving the one you're replacing? What exactly are you trying to accomplish by doing so? So again, ultimately, you can do any kind of deeds and such with it, but ultimately it comes to the intention. If your intention, of course, is to censor yourself, but why use a word like that to censor yourself? Why would you need to censor yourself? What does the word trying to replace, and what meaning and purpose are you trying to put behind it? So, because I remember asking about that, and someone mentioned, it was in a sermon that my pastor was preaching, and what he said basically was people try to, instead of saying, the GD word, say, gosh darn it. But what is your intent of doing that? I mean, you may as well have said the actual one, because in your mind, that's what you were trying to say, but you felt uncomfortable with the wording, so you just want to replace it with something else to just say something of a meaningless expression instead of just simply saying ouch. If, say, you stub your toe on something, or you hear something that bums you out, instead of just simply sighing or saying great, you just go like, gosh darn it, just lost my job or something like that. Your intention, as the scriptures point out, is what's important, because it's what's in the heart that ultimately is going to defile you, is whatever is in your heart that causes one to sin. As Jesus states in things like eating the foods, the stuff that goes into you is temporary. It will eventually come out. But what comes out of your mouth, because what comes out of your mouth ultimately has its root in the heart, that's what's going to defile you. And so, including the intentions you'd have.
So it's the intentions that matter?
Exactly. It's the intention behind it, and the purpose and the reason of why you're saying this word in particularly.
So depending on the intention and the heart of the person, it may be right for one person, but not for another.
Right. For example, like if I were to stub my toe, and I have some way to collect myself and gather myself, and I just simply go out and say, "Oh gosh darn it," or say the actual word, that would somewhat be wrong on my part, because even though if I was saying "gosh darn it," what I would want to say and what I'm replacing is, saying damn and God in the same thing. When one is saying the name of God, saying God, the one you believe in, and then you use damn, the part where God damns people to hell, so casting judgment upon someone, makes no sense really when you think about it, that you're using it in a scenario in which you just stub your toe. What, you want to, God to damn the toe's pain or something like that? So a more appropriate response would just simply be like an ouch or something like that. But if you use things like dang or gosh darn it, you're ultimately trying to still censor what you were originally intending, but you just feel uncomfortable. But some people just are uncomfortable with the wording. So it's only comes down to the intention of what words you use, because depending on your intention, that's also going to change what words you use and the outlook on it.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
No problem, my friend. Friendo.
Oh, I'm going to link to all the dubbing he's done where Christian Anarchist has sworn.
Oh, for goodness sake. That's going to be interesting, isn't it? So what's up next? Nate. General.
Hey, guys.
You may be a good voice actor, but you ain't that good. And I swear, you do the female one more time, I will make sure to come over there and show you the meaning of Bible Thumper. General Han Solo, are you there?
Hey, guys. This is General Han Solo. Today we're looking at this Michael Heidzer video, and as you can see, it clearly proves a local flood. If you refer to the ancient Near East,
you gotta be a little deeper than that. Okay, so
if you refer to the ancient Near East,
oh, for goodness sake! All right, so apparently he's not there. So if someone can message him on Hangouts or something in the instant chat, let him know he needs to wake up. So we'll come back to him later then, I guess.
Robert!
Oh, for goodness sake!
You need to wake up!
Jojo? Okay.
Jojo!
Why? I knew that was going to happen. Shadowrun, it's your turn. Just doing anything to get Joseph to calm down. Shadow, are you there?
As you can see, this is the atheist's worst nightmare.
There you go, the banana. Well, we'll get more into the banana later, but
There were bananas on the ark.
Banana arc. There you go. Well, this is interesting. Two of the next people aren't answering. So, we're going to have to play a penalty game for General Han Solo and Shadowrun. Dang it, that didn't even do anything. Oh, there I go, being a hypocrite there. I'm going to apologize for that. So, going back to who's next? Well, actually, let me see if there's any live chat questions. Oh, for goodness sake. Zeke, yeah, it was a JoJo reference that we just did earlier. So...
Hey, wait a minute. Was that a JoJo reference? Nani?
But by the way, wait, Joe, was it you that said you liked the Dragon Ball Super bridge thing that I was a part of?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Zeke is actually one of the directors or editors for that. So that's who asked you the question.
Ah, okay.
And his next question is Nani Deska.
Masaka.
Oh, for goodness sake. Okay, before this turns into a whole weeaboo fest, we're going to go back to questions. All right, so hopefully for this time when we come back around, Shadow and General will be up and running. So going back to the beginning, let's go to Mr. Jojo. Yeah, I'm going to use that for now. Mr. Jojo, what is your question?
I don't know. What made you do YouTubes? Plural.
It's a pretty good question. What happened was that I just did these to like make videos for certain actual YouTubers. Like I started out with inspiring philosophy. My first ever video was him helping me go over some material I had for an apologetics class I was teaching for my church. And I thought, maybe we can go over it, but at the same time, I know this whole Google Hangouts thing works. So maybe if I do a video, it'll go live, and once it's posted, you can use it for your own channel. I wanted people to take my own videos so that they could upload them on their channel. And then ultimately after that and Nephilim Free, and then it turns into a group thing, and I joined these other Hangouts, I decided to actually make a little Bible study group for people to join and get everyone's thoughts. Then people wanted me to make some videos that were separate from that. So I did. I tried it out. But I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And people kept subscribing. And I'm like, why are you subscribing? Originally, this was not supposed to even be meant for you people. So why are you even subscribing to me? So I just kept going and giving it a shot. And ultimately, my videos evolved, my style evolved, all of that. And I get to the point where, there are people that actually are curious of wanting to learn theology. So I figured, let me make a couple of videos that will help explain certain questions that need to be answered, and maybe some things in theology and Bible study that could help out a person. So my first take was on theistic evolution, trying to explain this concept. Then dealing with certain passages and how to ultimately reconcile them with, are they contradictions or are they simply true? Trying to just deal with all this stuff. That was my original intention. And ultimately it comes to a part where now I'm doing somewhat a bit of a humor. And it's even grown at this point because I don't know if Zeke is still watching, but I got into voice acting. So that was something I never thought would ever happen. And it just, the more I go down this road, random moments and inspirations come up where I just tried making a little voice acting demo reel, and all of a sudden I'm in other places besides my channel. I'm doing collabs for other people, working as a voice actor on other things, and working on other projects. So it's a really good thing. And I really think YouTube's a very good format. I thank them for what they've had to offer here. And so, YouTube has just been nothing but good to me. However, I have heard that, YouTube is going hard on their policies on censorship and such. So if this channel happens to get deleted or taken down by false flaggers or something like that, my next plan is probably SoundCloud, continuing the theological discussion podcasts, or going to continue doing my try to pick up back on my website for blogging at this point. So that's ultimately what kind of led me there and where I am now.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt this entire stream to do a plug. Go to my blog, thoughtsinthecar.blogspot.com. Bye.
There you go. All right, so going to the next question. Enoch, or I think it's Enoch. How are you doing? What's your question? Do you got one yet?
Well, you were talking about original sin with Abdul. That's where Pelagius and Augustine had their famous debate, and that's kind of the doctrine I would say. That's what I would deny the Bible teaches original sin, at least the way it's understood. I mean, seems to me that your teaching of original sin gives an excuse to people for why they don't come to God, because they're born that way, right?
Right.
So if you're, God supposedly made himself known to people, according to Romans 1.
Yeah.
So, and that he did that in order so they would be without excuse.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I don't understand how men can be morally capable of understanding that moral truth that God gave them, according to Romans 1, and still and not be able to understand, say, the gospel message that Paul ties to that very subject in the same chapter.
Okay, so can you summarize that question real quick?
Yeah. So in Romans 1, around verse 20 or so, Paul's talking about those people that suppress the truth. He talks about the wrath of God is hanging over these people who suppress the truth because God has made known this truth to them. He's caused them to understand it, even his eternal power and Godhead, right? So that they're without excuse. Now, usually Calvinists will say that that information is only enough to damn them. It's not enough to lead them to God or something. But I would just question. I would question what the question is the nature of the person who can understand this moral teaching from God through creation, but is not able somehow to understand the simple gospel message unless God should regenerate them first.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he reveals the natural thing about him. That is that there's an existence of a God. Now, does one believe? That's the other thing. And so it's not just simply knowing God exists, and all know, but rather, does one have knowledge of the gospel, which people are going to be given a chance to hear the gospel message and hear the general message of it, and then they can choose to reject it or not later. But then the issue is, then still, will you believe? That's ultimately the issue.
Right, but part of the issue of believing is understanding, and part of the teaching of original sin is that no one, like if you hear any good teaching on actually it's a combination of total depravity and original sin. They'll take you right to Romans 3 and tell you no one understands, no one seeks God. So if no one understands, how is it they can understand to the extent that they are without any excuse before God?
Because they know God exists.
Okay, and is that a moral? I mean, how is it they can understand something like that if they're spiritually dead?
Because the issue about the spiritual deadness is not in relation to simply the knowledge of God. The spiritual deadness is in terms of the relationship and the desire for God. You can know of God, but you don't have to desire him. He doesn't leave that kind of thing there. The issue is about the nature. For example, you can put up something about a specific food out there that's, come get this food. But if you do not desire that food, for example, let's say you're on the streets and you see a hot dog stand. It's right there. Someone's yelling, "Hot dog, get your hot dog." And you see right there, even the picture's there. You don't even need the guy to say it. You know it's there. You have the knowledge that the hot dog is there. But if you have no desire to eat hot dogs, well, you're just going to walk away and you ain't going to be getting anywhere near that because you don't like hot dogs. You don't want a hot dog. You don't want to get within 15 feet of a hot dog. You don't like them. But then you have those who desire hot dogs, those who have a craving for that. So they'll go over, they'll get the one with the mustard and the ketchup, maybe sprinkle some cheese on there, maybe some chili cheese hot dog, and boom, that person is going to enjoy and want to come after the hot dogs. But then you have some that, even though they know of it there, they don't desire it, they have no intention of wanting to participate in the eating of a hot dog. So likewise with God, one may know God, but does not desire to go to God or to know God in his entirety and fullness, meaning the message of the gospel, or even a care about it. They can understand it, but they will not fully grasp it, and they will not desire to even understand it further.
Okay, so then it really is just a question of, because we don't disagree that some men respond and others don't. there's nothing in Romans 1 that would teach that men cannot understand the gospel, though, because, I mean, it's kind of the way Paul ties it in. He steps up from the gospel message in verse 16, you know, for I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone who believes. And so that's one group of people. They hear the gospel and they believe. And then you have this other group that he contrasts those people with, is these people who suppress the truth. But he does tie the same, you know, he ties the two together, the gospel and this you know, culpability that these men have before God. You know, it's the same kind of information. I think that's just pretty clear. So, I guess we could, you know, you could talk about why someone believes and why they don't. Why, you know, why. So, I mean, my view would be that, you know, men believe that because they respond to the truth. That's, I mean, the gospel message is the same kind of. I mean, it's greater truth than the revelatory truth of creation, and so that message comes, and people are moved by that information that the gospel contains. You know, the message about Jesus and sin and death, and, you know, and life in Him. You know, so why can't the message of the gospel just be as easily understood as the creation by men? I guess that's my question.
Because the scriptures state, like, for example, in Colossians, is it Colossians? No, it's 1 Corinthians, chapter 2, verse 14, that the natural man receives not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. But he that is spiritual judgeth all things, yet he himself is judged of no man. For who hath known the mind of the Lord that he may instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. Referring to the we as the believers, especially the Corinthians that he wrote to in Corinth at the church. So the issue is that the Holy Spirit is ultimately what leads you into certain knowledges of things. But however, it says that the natural man, which, as the Holman Christian Standard Bible puts the more accurate understanding of what ultimately this word means of natural man, the pishulokos anthropos. This is basically an atheist, a non-believer. And he says that he can't understand, that he does not receive the Spirit of God, the things of the Spirit of God, and therefore he can't properly discern these things, because not only does he not have because he can't know, because if he doesn't have any experience, how else is he going to know these things? Ultimately, that's what it goes down to, is that the experience with the Holy Spirit is something. And that it ultimately, its experience gives you a knowledge of things.
Okay, well, I would just, I guess my argument against that would be that 1 Corinthians 2, at least in verse 14, Paul's not talking about the gospel. I think if you go to verse 6, I don't have the chapter in front of me, but you'll see that Paul opens up. He's talking about the gospel, that he did not come to them and you know, flowery language, words of wisdom, but he decided to know nothing among them except Christ and Him crucified. And then he makes a change in the subject between the gospel, and then he says, however, among the mature, you know, we do speak, you know, then he starts to talk about the deep things of God, these things of the Spirit. So I would just say, you know, and of course, a person that's not a believer cannot understand the deep things of God. These are the things Paul wouldn't even teach to most believers. He saved this teaching for the mature believers. So this is not a reference. Paul's reference to them not being able to receive, you know, that's foolishness to them. They're not able to even, you know, that's not Paul is not addressing the gospel message there. He's talking about the deep things of God. So,
Right.
you know, I just say that text isn't addressing the question.
Right. All right. So we're gonna have to. Thank you for your question there. We're gonna have to move on because we got like 45 minutes left before we have to end the show. And we got some other people that are gonna want some questions answered. And apparently, someone has just mentioned that there's the religion of the Reese's Pieces, and we have the scripture quoted for us here in Pieces chapter 19, verse 77. Peanut butter chocolate, great when separate, but when they combine, they make the morning time epic. So keep in mind for some of those wanting to deal with the cult of Reese's Pieces, that's the one scripture they're going to go to when they're going to try to convince you to be in the religion which teaches you must drown yourself in melted peanut butter and chocolate, which is going to burn and be really bad for your hair later. So make sure you prepare yourself with that scripture that they'll use, because the best way to refute this one is simply saying that, no, it does not make it epic. What does make it epic is ham and cheese. Thank you. There you go. Let me see. Someone did ask for the link, and I gave it to him. Hopefully he'll join later on, maybe. Okay, we got Zeke asking something Dragon Ball Super abridged related. What was your inspiration behind your Vegeta voice? Was there a specific source behind it? Yeah. And I kind of am putting the blame on the director for this, because when I saw the auditions for this, one of them was, well, make it close to this so it gets a clip. Funimation, Chris Sabat voice. So I'm like, okay, I have to work myself around this. So let's do this. So I kind of get in the mood for it, and I audition, and then Shazam, ba-boom. It happens. All right. So it's mostly just Chris Sabat, but I tried to like some just random vigilante characters I try to think about. Like, imagine if you have the very high testosterone guy that's like, oh, built up manly man kind of thing, you know, just get all that testosterone there. Okay, and apparently Zeke also wants to know if I can say, after I kill you, your waifu body pillows will be next. I can't really do it as loud because it is nighttime and there are people that are next door to me that may be sleeping. But I may try as best as I can. But if I get a knock on my door because of you, well, then you know who gets you know the reason why I get evicted. All right. After I kill you, your waifu body pillows will be next. There you go.
No,
After I kill you, your waifu body pillows will be next.
Dang it, Jojo! I am going to smack you.
Sorry.
Ugh. Oh my goodness! This is what I surround myself with, people. I wonder how Zeke is gonna think about that take right there. So.
Man, I really hope he enjoys it.
Shut up. Okay, so we got new guests in. Sister, always a pleasure to have you.
Yay.
Yay. And then we have Master Zemnis. Sorry, Mr. Zemnis, I will not bow to you, for you are not my master. Well, I'm sorry. I only have one master. Lord Jesus Christ.
Dude, I wanted to put Keyblade Master, but you know that didn't fit on the YouTube thing. So yeah.
Right on. All right, so trying to figure out where the heck.
Wait,
oh no.
CA.
What?
I have
Someone
another
said,
question for
what?
you. Is that okay?
Well,
Okay.
someone said they just heard the landlord coming, so you better make it quick.
Okay, did you know my blood is black?
You sound just like. Oh my goodness.
You might want to get that checked.
Yeah, I mean, have you been drinking too much motor oil, or like, what's up with that, man?
The guy that comes out of your back.
There you go. Okay, so I'm trying to keep an eye on who came in first, so that way I can get everybody. Actually, let's go to some of the new people. That way we can get them taken care of before we run out of time. So first it was Master, then his sister. So Master, you're first. How are you doing?
Well, so like over the weekend, I went to the beach and I saw this man, and I don't know, it was weird. It's weird if I try to explain it, but my dad was talking to him and stuff, and then I was like, I tried to get my dad to be like, oh, tell him, about God or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But like that was the first time I tried to evangelize. I don't know if I did it right, because I was like, well, I know you have a video about it, but I was like, do you believe in God? And it was kind of awkward because we were both in a pool, so he was like a grown man and I'm a teenager talking to him about this.
Yeah.
So it was like, I was like, do you believe in God? Like, do you know like a better way to start maybe like a conversation about that?
Yeah, because these are
He was cool though.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, you're lucky there then, because I mean, you have some people that may get the wrong idea, just look at you with a weird look and like, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in buying a Bible today, sir. They may think you're like one of them salesmen and such, but one of the things that I think is the best way to start out a conversation, if you're not, because I don't think there's really a good way to like explain how to start the conversation, because it always depends on the person you're approaching in the situation.
Go on the street.
But the best way to get it right, but the best way to get it started in general is with a gospel tract of some sort. So, for example, like maybe I wish I had some of them near me at the moment.
It would get wet in the pool.
Huh? What was that?
It would get wet in the pool.
Right. I'm talking about just in general, trying to get a conversation started, like in general. So, like, if you have a tract on you, rather it be, just a basic paper tract, or maybe you have one of those unique, funny conversation ones, like the $1 million tract, or the huge $100 bill, or the little curved illusion thing from Living Water Ministries. If you use those are good ways to start off a conversation.
Cool.
One of the things also would be, ask, in a way, I guess, like, I mean, to me, I haven't come across that particular subject. I have talked to some people about it at anime conventions, as, what are your, do you believe, what are your beliefs on, when we die and such, because I'm with a lot of people at anime convention, and they're, going to get philosophically minded. So I keep that in mind, and I ask the question so that way we get a conversation started. Or maybe ask a thought-provoking question if we have talked enough. Make sure you have a good casual conversation so that way you don't come off as just a creep. Talk about the weather, or talk about, how's their stay in the pool in this area or something like that. Are they visitors, or are they living people that live here? So, and then when you get to it, be like, just a curious question. What are your thoughts on what happens when we die and such? Or maybe, what are your thoughts on religion? Just be very vague in general to start it off with. That way you can get a conversation and go in general outlook. And then maybe take it up to, then talk about maybe, what is sin and such. So you go into what the bad news, basically, as I call it, the bad news to the good news, which is that, we are sinners and such, and that that because we violated the law, we deserve this. But then here comes the good news. And so there you start going from having a conversation, you kind of explore what he holds to, if he is a non-believer, that is, and then you kind of go into the preaching of the gospel message. But if he's a believer, I mean, doesn't mean you just don't have to keep the message there. I mean, you can even talk about it. What do y'all believe and such? And maybe just daily reminders sometimes about the gospel. And even if y'all can just talk about the gospel message and such, it can even help somebody, because you never know if maybe they were like me back then, and that they claimed to be Christian and such, but they never really considered or thought about really what goes with that name. So,
and also, like, today, like at school, like most of the people know that like I'm a Christian, right? But they don't really judge me for it. You know, they're cool. I guess you said like I got lucky that time. He was the guy there was a Hindu, right? And he told me, like I asked him, and then he was like yes, and I was like oh, and then I just stayed quiet for a second. He said I'm Hindu, and then he said like he believes in multiple gods and stuff.
Yeah.
But like today, when I was at school, I was telling my friend about right, and I told him, what did I say? Do you think it was a good approach for me to tell him like I was like I was talking to him that day. I was talking to a man at the beach, and I was like the most fun part of my vacation was talking to him, and he was real open about it. And what else did I say? I said, give me a second. I said, okay, no. I said, like, he said you were doing a lot of, he was doing the most talking because most people know about Christianity, right? And I said, oh my goodness, man. Wait, give me, I gotta think. I didn't, he said, no, I said, there's a lot of misconceptions, right? And then I was like, how do you get to heaven? And then he said something like, you have to be a good person. And I told him, no, that's not exactly true. And I told him, like, what you have to do is believe in Jesus first. And that's basically, like, the gist of it. And then he was like, no, I don't believe in Jesus, so I'm just going to go to hell. And then I was like, okay.
If I
that was a lot of stuttering.
If I may add a comment about the $100 track or $1 million thing, I realize in some cases that's just used as a joke, like, hey, here's, you walk up to a stranger, here's $1 million, and they're like, ah. But one thing I've seen a lot of people do, and people shouldn't, is when they leave that as their tip.
Oh my God, these people.
Now, let me just, you're a single mom working minimum wage over hours. You get a tip, and it's like $100, and you're just pay my bills. Oh my God, my children can stop whining about a toy. There'll be peace in the house. And then you flip it over, and it's just, do you know who Jesus is? You immediately put like a barrier in their heart towards the gospel that only, you know.
Right.
Very embarrassing. Please don't do that.
And exactly. Please
no, I'm
don't.
gonna hold up a sign that says sinners go to hell.
Right. So there's actually a very interesting way to solve this, and I have a copy of the tract on me, due to the tract pack I got. But it's a little tract that's basically an envelope, and it says, "Open." It's another one of those tempting things for the waitresses. It says, "Open up, free money inside." And basically, what you do for that is that it has these little 2-hole slips, and you slip however much money you want to put in as your tip. So that way, it's like, okay, the waitress sees it, and boom, they open it, and they see there's the money in there. So it wasn't a gospel tract that was full of crap. It was actually full of money. And then it goes on, it's like, now, if you did not put your faith and trust that there would be money in this, you wouldn't have opened it up in the first place. And so it starts talking about going into faith, and then starts getting into the gospel message. But it still, at the same time, gives them the tip that they so deserve. So that, to me, I think would be a better gospel tract to use if you're trying to witness to a waitress but don't have the time to fully get the message there.
That's smart. But, like, I would rather, like, talk to somebody one-on-one, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think those can help out, and that's why when I go to an anime convention, it definitely helps out. Which, by the way, I found out probably won't be able to go to another one of those until, like, next year or the year after. Yeah, because... well, it takes a lot out of your money when you decide to rent and pay off for your new home as well as your furniture. So I should get a good bit of savings I've saved up afterwards of what I am able to keep in my bank. And as a result, I will be doing my best to head to more conventions. Hopefully next time, if I go back to Bossier City or Baton Rouge, because I know those guys are just awesome, every single one of them. Maybe, if there's a good chance, I might get to see Mr. Habercorn, because that guy is awesome, and I love him.
Dude, Vic Mignogna is my favorite like celebrity of all time.
Yeah, technically I got
met him.
close. I got close to meeting him in a way.
I got
as what I
close
was
to his skin.
But well,
I
for this
interrupted-
he was on the phone. Todd ended up calling him during a little Q&A session.
I interrupted him while he was walking through his panel.
I
But
got an
he
email from him.
How
He looked
dare
mad.
you interrupt the Mignogna?
Oh wait, here,
he looked really mad at me.
Oh wow.
And he's buff. Have you seen him in real life?
Who?
Yeah.
Vic or
Vic
Todd?
Mignogna.
No, I haven't, and that's why I want to like actually meet him one day.
Dude, he's buff. I was scared.
Oh, yeah.
He looked mad at me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I looked at him like off the whole thing, and he's already. I can tell he's buff. He's ripped. He's working out. Just just don't mention Winter, because now with him being Uncle Crow, he'll really start getting some stuff going there.
If you really want to get a conversation about religion and God going, this is what you say.
Hey, Jesus is God, you know?
You know?
You kind of went from somewhat of a Corona thing to almost sounding like Italy from Hitalia.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, Germany! Ah!
Yes,
Oh my goodness!
the boy is
Jeff
strong.
What is it now, Italy?
Germany! I'm so scared!
Oh, for Schneitzer, shut up! Tell me what it is. There you go.
Oh God, you made my night, Joseph.
I actually got to see what was her name? I think Brina Palencia or something like that. She was the voice of CL from Black Butler, and then of course Chibi Italy from Hitalia.
Yeah.
She was interesting. Apparently, someone asked her to do a recording of a conversation between CL and Chibi Italy. It was hilarious.
Glorious.
Yeah. I'll tell you what's more glorious than that, though. Jesus Christ. Anyways.
Amen. Glory to God.
Glory to God. Yeah.
Lord
Here come the
God.
Southern Baptists. Rise again.
With all their guns.
Yeah. With our guns and sweet
Lord.
tea.
The
There you
Lord.
go.
We don't want that Pokemans, the devil.
Pokemon is the devil.
I've literally heard that.
Yeah, surprising too that like the Bible thumping wingnut and then view that. Oh snap! I just realized we got like 30 minutes left before the rest of the Q&A goes up.
Hey, ask questions, everyone in the live chat.
So
Go.
y'all do that if y'all.
Pokemon.
Yeah, if y'all wait, what?
Who's your favorite Pokemon?
That's the question.
What's your favorite Pokemon, really?
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
I can't choose my all-time favorite Pokemon. No, you can't.
Wait, you could, but we don't care.
Wow.
I kid. You know I like you, man. You're the only Calvinist Reformed person in this room that likes anime, so that's awesome. There you go. That's an awesome Pokemon.
I remember at my church when they were doing an Operation Christmas Child, on the list of things to get, it said no Pokemon or Harry Potter related items.
Oh my. Yeah, you can tell those are some strange people. But yeah, I think if I had to give a favorite Pokemon.
No Pokepotter.
Yeah, Pokepotter.
Pokepotter.
It would have to be
Obviously the trash one. Rubbish or whatever, Trubbish, yeah.
Yeah, Trubbish, huh? But no,
Or
in
the
all,
ice cream one.
in all seriousness, it had to go hands down to the classic Charizard, because I think Charmander and such was like the Pokemon I would start out with in the classical games, and I would go around.
Overrated.
You know, collecting it and evolving until ultimately it comes a Charizard. I mean, just to me, fire was an interesting perspective for a Pokemon. So yeah, that was mostly it. So yeah, Charizard's my favorite.
Okay. I got the second edition fossil version of that one.
Woohoo!
I don't know if it's worth anything, but
Well, you never know.
Well, I'm just gonna go for a really obscure answer. Pikachu is my favorite Pokemon. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one.
No, I haven't. What's it look like?
What in the world?
It's like this yellow mouse with electricity. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I don't know if
I
kids
felt,
would like it.
I felt like I've seen it, but then like years later, it's like no one cares about that one anymore.
Yeah.
Is that the new Pokemon like that no one cares about in X and Y?
Yeah, basically, it's one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see here. Going back into the original order, we got who was Nate. You want to just skip you for a sec?
Yeah. I'll think of something.
Okay, then we go to Shadow.
Hey, so I was running for a little bit. Are we still asking like Christianity related questions, or we just kind of off topic?
Like it can be Christian related topics or off topics. Like that's the main thing. Like you can be whatever you want at this point.
Okay, I have a question. At one point of your life, were you at one point agnostic or atheist?
I would call myself that in a way. What I was back then is what if you've ever seen the guy Jefferson Bethke, the guy who's famous for the video "Why I Hate Religion But Love Jesus." In a book that I read of his called "Why Jesus is Greater Than Religion," there was a part where he mentions default Christianity, and what that is you wear the name tag and nothing more. You call yourself the Christian, but you really don't think much about your faith. You don't study it. You don't eat it. You don't walk it. You don't breathe it. You don't do any of that. You don't live it. And so you pretty much just wear the titles just so you can go to the events and be like, hey, I'm a Christian. Oh, hi, I'm a Christian too. Welcome to the club. So you go to all the nice social events, and then you have the dinners and the cupcakes and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. So you really don't think much about it. So that was kind of me. I just say, I believe in God and I believe in Jesus. And then sometimes I'll just make things up to justify my own means. Like, I believe in Jesus and I believe that he would allow the slaughter of Muslims, because I was very mad when I just found out about 9/11 for the first time when I was a kid, because I was like little baby that didn't understand things or even knew about 9/11 whenever it first happened when I was just growing up. Then when we were introduced to it, the concept blew me away, and that was my whole thing. Just blame it on the Muslims, and then use Jesus as my shield to back up my authority on that. But then, that was for the first 18 years until 2013 is the day that I got saved. When I hear the gospel message and actually learn about forgiveness and all that, which I didn't grasp. I even used Jesus as the example. If you have to be perfect, you can't forgive people because they make mistakes, that they are, tainted and corrupt in this. But then I hear about how Jesus died and rebuked someone who tried to take away Jesus and such. So there was a lot of forgiveness in this, and I just never saw it. I didn't pick up the Bible and read. No one preached this in the pulpit. I didn't even pay attention in the church. Yet here it is. Here comes Papa. That is what I called him. He's my grandpa from my stepmom's side of the family. Has explained the gospel message when I just asked the question, why was Jesus killed? Because I did not know. And then boom. At the age of 19 years old, I become a Christian. And it was the most emotional day for me after that. So I was what I would call myself a default Christian, which I would consider somewhat of an atheist if they just go by the name, but they don't practice what they claim to believe. And that was basically me as somewhat of an atheist for 18 years.
All right, thank you.
No problem, mate. So we got about 20 minutes left. Let me see if there's anything in the live chat.
I remember 9/11. I was a whole 1 year old.
There you go. I was, I think like 3 or 4 or something like that. I forgot. I remember I was
Hey,
yeah.
I think our economy's still struggling with that.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem we have any live chat questions, so we're just gonna go back to the top again, meaning Mr. Jojo Star.
Dio,
Nani?
Dio,
Masaka.
Dio Brando.
Oh goodness gracious.
Stand power.
Nani?
My goodness. You know what, Joseph? At some point, if I do another video called needing a skit and such, I'm going to immediately ask you to record something for me. You're going to be in one of my next videos on that.
All right.
So brace yourself, my friend.
Brace yourself.
Yeah, brace yourself.
Sake.
What? Woman. But anyways, so all right then, Joseph, what's your question?
Okay. Let's see. I don't know. Why? What? Okay. What mic are you using?
Oh, a blue snowball mic.
Oh my gosh. What do you mean you're not using a meme Yeti?
Nope.
Meme.
I'm using a blue snowball. I don't need a Yeti.
I take the walk of shame.
Why?
On me personally,
Why?
because my mic sounds awful.
Well, what are you using?
The built-in mic.
Oh,
I got the best mic. And I got the best drawing tablet.
Drawing tablet.
Yes.
My drawing, but it's only like one-time use, and you have to use pencil.
See.
You know, it's called paper.
I desperately need fan art of me as Chrono wearing JoJo clothes.
No, you
while
don't.
Also eating pizza like Italy.
No,
so.
Master, don't you encourage his behavior.
Let me turn on my tablet. Listen.
Great.
Oh, you have a tablet?
I do have one, but I was just playing with the pencil.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'd rather draw with paper.
Master, sister, I will pay you $20 to not draw Joseph's desires at this point. He is not.
I'm already on it.
I will.
Said with what outfit?
A JoJo outfit. Here, I'll just type in JoJo and you'll see something weird.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh my. All right, so
this is going to be the greatest thing ever.
I had somebody from Newgrounds one day comment on a picture of Sailor Moon that I drew and said that I drew him. Okay, that I drew her very like a man and that I should do JoJo pictures instead.
Oh my gosh. Yikes.
Dang, that was like some serious trolling and it hurted my self-esteem. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it looked really good.
Oh yeah, someone just pointed out in the live chat, a blue snowball and a Yeti. LOL when you think about it, apparently. Okay, wait. Did you already ask your question, Joe?
Yeah, I asked what mic are you using. So do you use Snowball for recording?
Sometimes I do. Some for like Dragon Ball Super Abridged, I use mostly my my iPhone mic.
Wow. Is it better or something? I don't understand.
How about you? You go watch Dragon Ball Super and you tell me. Abridged. So the Kim Jong, the Choo Choo Train of Bel Air, asks what are my thoughts on C.S. Lewis and his theological views. I think he's a good guy. I mean, there are definitely some things I disagree with that I think are heterodox. But overall, I think he's very smart, very wise, very sharp, intellectual kind of guy. So I like his work. I don't have a copy of any of his books, but I have read some essays, and I have read some snippets from what I had. I did rent Mere Christianity for quite some time to get a glimpse of it. So yeah. That being said, let's go towards Nate.
All right. Wait, I only have 5 minutes left on my Chromebook here, but why would God predestine someone for hell?
Why would God predestine someone for hell? Good question.
Well, let's just jump right into it, I guess.
Yeah, jump right into the seriousness ones. Let me actually go to get my Bible software out for this one. Okay.
And I guess even more than that, more than just predestined, is why would God let anyone go to hell?
Right.
I mean, I understand the basic arguments, but it's never really sat well with me.
Right. And that's the thing. Sometimes they don't. That's not the point. I mean, there are things that are said that they're true, but I mean, Jews didn't necessarily agree with some of the stuff that Jesus was saying. So I think the issue is about trying to just simply not what personally it feels, but ultimately trying to reconcile if it's truth or not. So that's the one thing I just want to keep in mind before we continue. And why would God predestine someone? So if, especially going to hell. So in Romans 9, the scriptures say, therefore, hath he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will hardeneth. Hardeneth is using the concept of what was quoted earlier, which is talking about that he will have compassion on whom he will have compassion, have mercy on whom he will have mercy. And earlier within this verse, I'm trying to remember which one it was, because you see Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. There's also a part where it talks about the hardening of the Pharaoh. And I think it may be later on down the line. I'm trying to remember which one exactly it was. But that's what it means by the hardening, because it, in the same sense as the Pharaoh's heart was hardened by God, for him to say no and resist the things of the plagues that were going when Moses says, "Let my people go," and Pharaoh keeps resisting. Then you have him saying, "Thou wilt say then unto me, why does he yet find fault? For who has resisted his will? Nay, but, O man, who art you that replies against God?" So basically says, therefore shall have mercy on whom he have mercy, and whom he hardeneth, he will harden. And then you say, well, why does he find fault? For who resisted his will? But then he's like basically saying, who are you to speak against God like this? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, say, why has you made me this way? Has not the potter have power over the clay, and over the same lump make one vessel unto honor, and in the other unto dishonor? Then goes to say, what if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering, which the word there is makrothema, which is patience, there, the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, and that he might make known the riches of the glory of the vessels of mercy, which he had afore prepared unto glory, even us whom he hath called, not unto the Jews only, but also the Gentiles. So he makes this...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So the thing, and I'm going to present this to everyone too, that way be better on that end, so you can see it a little better, is that basically God can use this also to demonstrate the wrath of God, to make known the wrath. So the idea that, and even then, the idea of predestination is an issue that even has debate on whether or not if it's double predestined. Some Calvinists, even I heard traditionally Calvinist views, was that only the elect are the predestined, but as for the non-elect, they're just kind of in a natural state that they're just left there. There's no predestination on that. Double predestination sort of comes along later on down the road. So But I would say ultimately the answer, if he did predestine those, they would go to hell. Ultimately, the response is, as it says, first of all, who are you to declare if it's unfair or not, if that's the case? Because God has power over his creation. He is Lord over his creation. He can do with it however he wants because he created it. But then says, what if God, willing to show his wrath and to make the power known, endured with the patience to make these vessels of wrath that are fitted to destruction, and that he at the same time will make known the riches of the glory in the vessels of mercy, which is the elect that go to heaven, which he has afore prepared unto glory. So there's a two-way answer in that based on what I'm seeing in the scriptures. If we go with the idea that double predestination is a concept that we accept.
Isn't it a logical follow-up?
Is that a what?
Isn't it a logical follow-up?
Is what? Well, some may say that, and that's why many people have then later on. That's kind of where it's at. It's that people came up with double predestination because then they're like, well, wouldn't it logically follow up? It depends on the theological view that you have, because some people say no, the non-elect just simply don't get the means of being predestined. They don't get that duty, and therefore, they are just left to it, and maybe there's still some hope for them. It just depends again on which theological perspective you focus on. I think I think it's probably possible for double predestination due to, as you would say, wouldn't it logically follow up? And based on that, I mean, going on that, trying to go based on what Romans 9 says, dealing with the specific issue, because one of the passages that was mentioned was Esau and Jacob, was saying that Sarah would have a son, and for the children being not yet even born, neither having doing any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him, God, that calleth. It was said unto her that the elder shall serve the younger, as it is written, meaning this is in the scriptures in Malachi chapter 1, verse 2. Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. This is said to be while the children weren't even born yet. And he tells us unto their mother, Sarah, or Rebecca does. So, yeah.
Might I just add some general rhetoric to, I guess, justify why God is able to do that? I mean, obviously there's the scripture, but I just want to put it maybe, I guess.
Sure thing.
When it comes to the relationship between men or mankind in their current state, which is sinful and fallen, and it to God, who is holy, and is not just holy, but is the standard of holiness, is an absolute necessity in my point of view to understand that you just breathing and living and not having your soul immediately destroyed and sent to maybe eternal conscious hell or whatever is proof of God's mercy and love and his patience. So it's not necessarily saying that God is just this moral monster, but rather you just sort of have to understand where we literally and spiritually stand in our place in the universe in comparison to God. But obviously God has even more mercy than that, dying for his people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
exactly, yeah. Especially if you believe Jesus is God manifested in the flesh. Definitely.
Can I say what I believe about that?
Yeah, sure thing. Sure thing.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I agree with like God made people so they like Pharaoh. I think God might use people like that. You know what I mean? Like someone who's Pharaoh, like they were hard in their heart. But because God doesn't live in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I believe that God knew that Pharaoh would never like turn to God. You know. So I think like with Pharaoh, he used him like that. I don't think he was like exactly predestined. I don't think that God would make somebody just so they could go to hell. I think it was really his free will, but then God made it that way. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
then we start getting stuff like middle knowledge and dimensions, like God exists in all 11 dimensions, and that explains, you know, how he is outside of time but yet in it. That gets complicated, so you know, go to General Han Solo's channel for some of
Send the
that.
volume to 11. Why 11?
Because string theory or whatever.
Space-time travel, all that jazz, I'm assuming.
It's time theory B, and then there's time theory A, and then, you know, if you're time theory A, then you probably don't think the past exists, or oh god, we're getting off in tangent. Let's move on.
And then this concoction.
Yeah, I mean
that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Time. Never mind. That's a reference no one will understand.
Yeah, but I did send you my expository on the whole Calvinism thing to your on Google Plus. That way you can that way you can download it. It is. Let me check, because it's the whole thing itself is 99 pages, but that's if you include the sources and citation pages. So totally 94 pages of information.
All right.
Yeah, so that kind of gives like an explanation of where it comes from, and every single chapter, at least for most of them, explains the verses in which justify where do we get the doctrine from. That way you can go and do your own reading and your own research to, you know, clarify and such. Because I always want to be tested in the claims that I've made.
You mean that video you sent me?
Not the video. There's a thing if you go in the Google Plus thing, you'll see there's another thing and it has a thing that says "A Case for Calvinism," which is the thing that I wrote. And on the bottom left of the picture, it says "An Expository" by Christian Anarchist.
Hold up.
Hey.
Are you sure?
Huh?
You sent that to me?
Yeah,
I just got a YouTube video. I'm an old man, dude. I'm at the ripe old age of 17. I don't know how these computers work.
Google check. Let me.
I don't know how these computers work, dude.
Are you on Hangouts?
You said on Google, or do you want me to go on Hangouts?
Well, I mean, either way. I mean, if you're on Google Plus,
I'm on both. Okay. Now I'm more confused.
Okay, so let me see if I can find something here. All right, so look in the part where it's. All right, so you see Ask Christian Anarchist number 40, the little chat on Hangouts that says that.
I guess.
All right, because I'm about to send it. You saw something just pop up?
Yeah.
If you click on that link, it'll give you the access to the PDF.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah. And trust me, when I say it, it's a lot of information on there.
It's 99 pages because you put it in like what 50 font, like.
Yeah. What can I say? I like working with big numbers. All
right.
But wait, what was that?
Numbers make my brain hurt.
There you go. Numbers make my brain hurt.
Both mathematical numbers and the book.
There you go. So we got time for one more question.
Hey guys, this is Christian Anarchist. If you look in the Hangout sidebar, you'll see the link to my Google Drive. And there I'll have a couple slides.
That's not Christian Anarchist. That sounds more like General Han Solo if you're going to mention
the hard drive. The joke. That's the joke.
Are you saying we sound alike?
His catchphrase is, "Hey guys, General Han Solo, check out my Google Drive. I have about 80 slides on this and a Michael Heiser video in the description about the ancient Near East point of view." So yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
I love you, Robert.
There you go.
Notice me, senpai!
Oh, for goodness sake. Okay. Sister, do you have any question you want to leave us with?
How am I doing with my work? With the joy?
oh, I've seen some of the work on her. I mean, like, I like the artwork in general. I mean, I think it's very interesting, and I'm pretty sure. I mean, like, for example, I mean, I told you when I went to Baton Rouge, took some of those anime gospel tracks out. Some of the people loved it. You even got it read and admired by a voice actor. So that's definitely something interesting to think about.
What did he voice act in? I know
he's small. He's small at the moment. He's done minor like background characters, but the only thing that's because he's really starting to get up there now is Assassination Classroom.
Oh, okay.
Who is it again?
Eric Cherry.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay, I was thinking he did My Hero Academia. I don't know why.
I don't know. He may have. I'm gonna have to just like check his roster first of all.
Can I shamelessly promote like this one video I have that's very terrible?
Sure, if you want.
Okay, wait. Hold up. It's on my other channel. That's not even. I just want you. I don't have a tripod right now, but like, you know, I just wanted to put something on YouTube. You feel? You feel me, dog?
I feel you, dog. Feel you, man.
There.
All right, so some YouTube thing. Let me.
It's very bad.
Let me just put this up.
It's gonna blow your ears up because I put the music in.
Well, we can't see it necessarily, or at least hear it, but
okay.
There you go. Anyone want to check it out? Check out this guy. He's sketching
next video in 1 month or something. I don't know because I don't have anything to draw with.
Yeah.
Dude, the lighting. It makes never mind. That's me.
Yeah, but don't worry, if y'all want to check it out, give it more than 3 views, people. I mean, come on.
I'm pretty sure they're all for me.
I know how you feel with that. I think sometimes all of my videos are just views from me.
I mean, I didn't show any.
All 800 subscribers are from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the right track using a mechanical pen, either a red or blue or mechanical pen. Character designers use.
Yeah.
Do you hear my dog? Sorry.
I'm watching it without the sound because I don't want to
blow your eardrums out. I know. Dude, I dropped my phone that I was recording with it. Like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It looks very bad because I just wanted to put something on YouTube because I don't know. Guess the story. You have to put it in the comments.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was like, "That's Dragon Ball Z, isn't it?" And I was like, "Whatever you say, bud."
There
Your art style isn't even close.
Naruto.
I do like your style, by the way.
Bada bam.
You said what?
It's nice.
I just say bada bam. He said he liked your style.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty. I did that like real fast.
Your
I
lines
didn't try.
horrible.
I didn't try. That's not very good for me. I think I could do better than that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But yeah, we are.
But anyways, listen, kids. If you like Sonic Speed, then you like Christian Anarchist. Whoa!
Whoa!
And
you're too slow.
After dork moment, and probably going to be locking up Joseph in an asylum for the rest of the night. That's all the time. That's all the time we have tonight on Ask Christian Anarchist.
We thank you for watching. Please come again.
Great. Remind me if we do if I need to have like a co-host or something for a future podcast, I'm putting you on it. You would be a wonderful co-host. So thank y'all for watching. This has been number 40. Tune in because we're going to try to make sure we get up to number 50. That'll be a real milestone for us right there. So yep. But that being said, thank y'all for watching and tuning in. If y'all want to join in, just I'm actually gonna, you know what, now because I know that for some reason some people have been sniping off-air hangouts lately, and I don't know why, but I'm not going to entertain those ideas. So if y'all want the link to join the Hangout for the after party, just go on go Google Hangouts, message me. I'll get you the link, and you get to come in. Or you can join the Discord chat and message me there, and you get to come in. But until then, this has been the Christian Anarchist. Shalom Aleichem. Peace be upon you, because I wish that upon you. Have a good day.
See you again.